Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of Pause and Rewind, the podcast that chats to changemakers, thought leaders and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now, but how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences, realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now, because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes and a little of what makes our guests tick. So whether you're here for insights or inspo or simply want to know about your heroes, this podcast is for you. You might never know someone's story, but if you pay attention, you'll hear it, you'll see it and you'll feel it. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, Sharan. Welcome to Pause and Rewind. I'm so glad we're getting this conversation in.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's nice to finally be on this podcast and chat to you.
Absolute pleasure. Love following your work, whether it's talking about Middlesex Pride, whether it's your articles popping up in the Metro. It's beautiful to see your name and your voice out there, right, on TV. I just think you have so much to say. I've learned so much from your work since following it. But before we jump into that, I always start with a big question, and that is, what does the world look like for Sharan Dhaliwal right now?
The world, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, the world does look quite scary to me, which I'm sure it does to a lot of people. But alongside it, I have a lot of hope. So the world looks scary, but with hope, because I really believe in community, like deeply. That's my belief system. I think community, and I think what's happening that's scary about the world is individualistic, and I think all the hopeful things are community driven. And so I'm seeing a lot of community love and a lot of community hope and support. And so I'm trying to, like, in my brain, cancel out all this individualistic hate with the love. I just need to remind myself to do it. And so I'm doing it a lot more. So it's a balance. It's a balance at the moment. So it's a bit scary, but then I have the hope come in every now and then.
And it has been a joyful kind of last year for you as well, with your big news, your engagement and upcoming wedding. It's been so beautiful to see all of that come together.
I know. God, I love love so much. So yeah, me and Saba are engaged to get married next year, and it's super exciting.
I love it.
Yeah, so we both proposed at the same time in Sicily when we went on holiday for my birthday, on Mount Etna. We both had rings. Saba had a ring that I'd originally sent to them, being like, "I like this ring," like, doing a bit of hinting. And then I got a ring from, like, Saba got a gem from Pakistan last time they'd gone to Pakistan, and I took that gem to India, and from the town next to my village I got it made into a ring. And so we both were on Mount Etna just like proposing to each other. It was so cute. And so yeah, we've got our wedding coming up next year.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And you saying you love love. I was there at your engagement party, and the love in the firstly, so grateful to be invited by you both. But the love in the room for both of you was so beautiful and actually told me so much about you both as well, with your families being there and what I know about you both. And obviously Saba's been on the podcast before, and I get to work with them so much through various different things, Trans Issue Week, We Create Space. But just getting to know you both and seeing that in that room gave me so much more insight into who you both are as individuals, but also as a couple.
Absolutely, because, like, people make us, don't they? They can really tell that with us, like, because we're both community driven, we're both community people, and so all of our groups and all of the work we do is community focused. And so everyone at the event, we've kind of like created communities with, as well as like had participated in other kind of like groups and organizations. And so it's just, yeah, they really are like a part of our story in so many ways, like every single person there. And so yeah, it was really beautiful. Oh my God, it was such a wild night. I don't remember a lot of it.
It was gorgeous. You both look stunning. You always do.
Thank you.
For anyone listening, how would you describe what you do? Because for me, I would say I would describe you as an author, a community organizer, but also, a social and cultural commentator comes to mind when I think about you and how you show up through your work. How would you describe what you do for anyone listening that isn't familiar with it?
You know what? It's so hard to do that. I get asked that often, like, what do you do? And I always get a bit stuck, because I used to list off all the things I did. And then I was like, well, that's just confusing and weird for people. And so I think now I say because I do have like various jobs. So now I say what I do and what I want to do. So like
Okay.
I'm an author and journalist, but I want to become a queer historian.
Okay.
So I think I kind of do it via jobs now. It's kind of easier because otherwise, the list goes on. I'm the founder of Middlesex Pride. I'm the founder of Burton Ruddy magazine. I used to run Oh Queer Cupid, a speed dating night. I'm an author. I've been in loads of anthologies. I'm a speaker. I do like various things. And so like, I, I hated listing it because it was just like, it felt a bit kind of like, oh, look at me. So now I just say my current jobs, which is journalist and author, and then what I want to do. So I want to be a queer historian desperately.
I mean, hard to relate. Like, I think a lot of us in the inclusion space doing what we do, without that wanting to sound too wanky, inclusion space, but we do various things, right? Same for me. And I'm always like, and people are like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. I'm like, yeah, it is a lot, but it has kind of common threads. And it's interesting that you say you want to be a queer historian, because I would infer that you are already, in the nature of how you capture queer history through all of your work.
I mean, okay, so every time I say I want to be a queer historian to like any friend or anyone who's known my work, they always go, well, aren't you? And I'm like, we actually need like degrees. So you need like,
Okay.
yeah, you need like an MA and all that. I'll never get an MA. I barely got a degree. So I will become a queer historian out of sheer will. I will just keep saying it and keep trying until I become one. But I think a lot of it's got to do with just social commentary as well. Like all the research I do a lot of research.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, I mean, it feels bad to say because there's a lot of historians out there that have worked so hard to get the title of historian. But like, I feel like I can get to the stage of like working in it enough that I can start calling it myself a queer historian.
What would that next
But,
step look like?
I think it would be publishing my research as a book. So like there's certain people that I'm researching in queer history, in queer South Asian history. And so if I publish a book on it, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's like proper historian work. Like that's like proper historian. So yeah.
So that's the big goal next, is working towards that.
Yeah, I mean there's a few goals, but that's definitely one of the big ones. There's so basically do you want to know the history of
I
like
do, yeah. I'd love to, yes.
Okay. So I worked with historic royal palaces on an exhibition that is out now called The Last Princesses of Punjab, and it's at Kensington Palace. So it's about the Dalip Singh sisters. The most popular sister is Safia, who was a suffragette, and she's the Indian princess that people know who was part of the movement. But there was two other sisters. There was Bamba and there was Catherine. Now, Catherine was very clearly a lesbian, but throughout history, she was called like, just the recluse who lived with another woman. And so while working on this exhibition as a consultant, I kind of pushed for them to basically just call her a lesbian and to stop thinking of that word as a slur. And so we finally got like the word lesbian in big letters in Kensington Palace next to a picture of her. It was amazing. I was like, yes, this is like a lesbian icon. It was amazing. But I did all this research on her. Like I've read so much about her and about her sisters as well. But not only did she have this life that was fairly secret where she lived with her girlfriend, she also rescued a bunch of Jewish people from Nazi Germany because she lived in Germany at the time and had to move away. And at the time, there were a lot of Jewish families that were trying to escape, but England wasn't welcoming of immigrants even back then. Mm-hmm. England has never really been welcoming of immigrants. And so you had to have a guarantor. So she signed a bunch of families' guarantors saying, yeah, they're going to live with me. Yeah, they're going to work for me. And just got a bunch of families over and even let a bunch of them stay in her house, in her large house, and have refuge. And so like there's so much history there, and it's so much activism and so much queer activism within these stories. And I just was like, I really want to tell a story. It's so hidden. Everyone keeps talking about her sister, who was also cool, but she's been completely like ignored and silenced. So yeah, it's these kind of stories that I'm just so excited about and want to tell.
History is, I would definitely not describe myself as a historian. However, there is something about queer history that gets me so excited. It's one of the reasons that I'm involved in Trans History Week. And I just wonder, was that love of history always there in you? Is that something that you've always kind of dug into?
No, because history at school was Henry VIII.
Yeah, of course.
I hated that man. I was like, the more you talk about him, the more I'm going to hate history. And so the history that was taught to us sucked. And so for ages, I hated history. And then
Yeah.
I didn't realize that over time, what I was doing with like my career or my life or my interest was learning history in my own different ways. So I
Yeah.
was learning about like colonialism in my own different ways. I was learning about like the slave trade in my own different ways through reading books and through like reading other people's articles and stuff. And so when I started realizing that I was getting inspired by reading these stories and it meant so much to me and it was changing the way I saw myself and the way I saw the way that I did activism and the way I acted. That's when I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually interested in history, the history that matters. If anyone says that Henry VIII to me ever again, I will just shut down. I can't deal with him. I cannot. I don't care about him at all. But like, it was all we
Yeah.
were told about.
Yeah, and in terms of shaping the world, really not that much. It hasn't really didn't really teach us any lessons apart from men are awful.
I mean, that could have been just one lesson, really. They didn't have
Yeah,
to
for
like
sure,
pull that out throughout the whole syllabus.
for
Yeah. I
sure.
mean, obviously there was other things that we were taught, but it was just
Yeah,
very heavily on like, and I just feel, there's, especially like growing up in a really multicultural area, there's like syllabuses should really account for the people that are there.
yeah,
And so, I mean, they should account for everyone, but like very particularly that you're going to lose interest from like, we're in a very South Asian area. You're going to lose interest of people like me when you talk about like old fat white men that I don't
yeah.
give a shit about, you
Uh,
know?
I mean, listen, I found history boring, whether it was talking about Henry VIII, whether it was talking about prohibition and the Roaring Twenties. It was all so dull. And so I've been loving kind of discovering queer history in later life. As well as finding a love of history, how did you find your voice? Your voice is so unique when it comes to the way you talk about history,
Mm.
politics, culture, bodies, sex, and the way you weave all of those things together. At what point did you think, I'm actually going to use this voice? Because it sounds like, from reading the book, I'm holding it in my hands for those listening, burning my roti. I absolutely loved it. And again, gave me so much insight into you. But this was a history lesson in itself. It's and a beautiful history lesson. Took me on such a journey. And I wonder, and I get the feeling as growing up, you always had kind of like a voice and a presence. But where did you first decide that actually I'm going to use my voice to make a difference?
That's a good question. I think for ages, because I've always been, my mom used to say that I would constantly talking and I would be the kid that was like skipping everywhere instead of
Yeah.
walking. Like I just had a lot of energy. And so I think when I was younger, I was told to quieten down, to like, become smaller, especially as a woman, especially as a South Asian woman, just like, stop being so loud, stop annoying everyone. And so for ages, I was just quietened. And I think as well as like being so heavily bullied at school, that further quietened me and I just became this shell of a person. I didn't really speak for ages about anything, let alone myself. But within my small groups of people, I had my interests. So in my little nerd groups where I was allowed to thrive, I had like my emo friends and stuff. I had my goth friends. I had like, all the people that like, I think it was music mostly that kind of like pushed me forward in life. That kind of helped me realize that in these small groups that I'm in, and again, this is such the beginnings of like, community work, but in these small kind of like geek groups that I was in, we were forming like so much love for each other, so much support for each other in the face of everything else. So like I was in these like metal groups with a bunch of other people and we just were, quite frankly, we were metalheads. But we really like we'd spend all our time together to support each other in everything that was happening. And I think, I mean, it took me a bit longer to realize that's what was happening. But I think having those people and those support groups around me made me realize that it's kind of important to have your people. I grew up in Southall and then I moved to Hounslow a bit later. And it's a very South Asian area. It's very immigrant heavy area. And there's not a lot of money put in here. Like the council didn't really give a shit about these areas, quite frankly. It was a really like, in many ways underdeveloped, as they would say, area. And so I didn't have any kind of like visibility of people who were kind of what they would consider strange, whether it was a metalhead or a queer person. And so I didn't really have that visibility. And I realized that I had to keep going into London for it. I had to keep like moving away from where I was to find people that felt like me. And I think that was like the start of me being like, well, I want that for people. I don't want them to travel. I don't want them to disappear somewhere else and not be able to exist where they are, however they feel like they can exist. So I started things like Middlesex Pride because of that. So my Pride event was started because I had no visibility of queer people growing up, like zero. No, there was one lesbian woman I knew in this temp job I had, Jackie. Oh my God, Jackie, what an angel. But she had this like underground life, that only people within her community could access. And I wasn't in that community, so I couldn't access it. So it was really hard to be me in my space. And I just wanted to make sure that anyone else that was a young me didn't have that kind of experience, because it sucked. And it's all about like, everything you do is like you try and make sure everything gets a bit better as you go on in life, right? You're not trying to make everything worse. And so every movement I have been trying to make is like, just try and make it a bit better. Like in the smallest ways, in Hounslow, make it a tiny bit gayer, like, things like that. Just like little things you can do to like make things a bit better. And I think that's kind of like the starts of it. Like, the beginnings of understanding community is like when you're a child, when you're a teenager. And it's about like, yeah, making the changes for people who would be you now.
Yeah.
And I think in regards to like finding my voice, I've always been, like I said, like I was just told to quiet myself, but it's always there. It's always
Yeah.
been there. Like I just haven't been saying it out loud. It's just been running around in my head. But as I got older and I realized that I didn't want to shut up and I didn't want to like quieten down, I became very loud. I became a very loud person, became very annoying to a lot of people, what a lot of like straight white men would call an insufferable woman. So like I was in like boardrooms, I was in meetings and stuff where I would walk in and they would just be like, ugh. But then I would solve all their problems.
Yeah.
So I realized after a while that the loud, sufferable, whatever they would call me, woman I was totally fine. It was totally fine to be that person, because at the end, I always got results for myself. So I always got paid, for one thing, because I worked hard. And then I always like got feedback from people who were like needed to be supported by me in some shape or form, And I think also because I'm a Taurus and I'm really stubborn. As I've gotten older as well, my anxiety has gotten so much harder for me to manage. I don't think it's gotten worse. I think I've become worse at managing my anxiety. And so it's harder for me to be in public spaces. It's hard for me to be out there doing the work like I did when I was younger. It's hard for me to be as loud, for example. So there's a lot more that goes into it now. Like I have to do a lot more to be able to achieve those results. But I mean, I feel like I do a lot less now than I did before, which I don't have a problem with. But I think that as you go on, the way that you work and the way you make difference will always change, and you just have to go with it. And I think for ages I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything. I'm just like sitting here, like having anxiety. And then I was like, oh no, that's fine. Have your anxiety. You still do things. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we definitely learn to tailor and harness and be a bit more practice a bit more self-grace and compassion with it as well. And when we don't have the capacity, you started off by saying the world is a bit scary. That inhibits so much of how we can show up in certain moments.
100%. 100%. I think I know a lot of people that don't read the news as much as I do, because one, it's part of my job to read the news every morning. As soon as I wake up, I read all the headlines. And so I wake up, and I speak to Summer about this often, because like I wake up and I'm reading the most horrible things on like news websites. Summer's like, what are you doing? That's horrible. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Part of it is for my job and I have to disconnect when I do it, so I can see if there's any stories I can get out of this. And the other part is me being like, I'm learning so much about what's happening in the world as well at the same time. So that fair side of it kind of subsides because I allow these other parts to take over. I allow this kind of like, it's part of your job. And also you're learning so much about the way that everything is working right now. So when you have something to say in a way to help people, you will be informed, like you'll have the background knowledge to be able to support where you can. And so I kind of like tell myself to do that. And it's not that easy. There's sometimes I read things and I just like completely shut down. I mean, it's not nice. It's not nice. I understand when people don't watch the news or don't read the news. I get it. I'm like, cool. I wish I could.
Of course, but I don't want to go. It's probably a separate conversation, but that's a very privileged place to be in, right? Like we need to know what's going on, particularly for our community as part of the queer community. Beautiful to hear that you and Saba keep each other in check, or they keep you in check. Are you able to do the same from each other? And how beautiful is it to exist in a space where you and Saba have both so much, you're both so aligned in terms of the things that you talk about and how you show up. I love that you both talk about all things brown and hairy, right? I think it's become a tagline that I automatically think of when both of you, when you're writing about it. I think that is, you seem so in sync when it comes to how you're showing up in the world. So it's beautiful to hear how that can also translate as you keeping each other in check.
100%. I think because we have so much kind of, like you said, aligned, we have so many shared experiences in so many ways. but it's also so different in so
Of
many
course.
ways. Like
Yeah.
Saba as a trans person as well, grew up very differently, Pakistani Muslim, grew up very differently. It has so many different ways that have informed the way that they are and why they show up the way they do. Whereas mine has been very different as well.
Yeah.
And so we, over time, and it has taken, I mean, we've been together for nearly 4 years now. I mean, saying that, we have known each other for like 10 years. But like over that time, we have found the ways that we've needed each other in those moments. So Saba's kind of worked out the way to show up for me, and I've worked out the way to show up for Saba. And it's because sometimes, because as a stubborn tourist, there are times that people are really lovely and show up, and I'm just like, get out of here, you know?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Or like, I'm like, no, I'm fine. You know, that kind of thing. So Saba knows how to approach me and how to like reach out to me over these things. Cause you know, it takes practice as well. And lots of communication, lots of talking. Like our favorite thing to do is just chat. We chat so much and we chat so much about how we feel all the time. There's no like moments where we're just like, what do we talk about? There's always something to talk about with us. It's ongoing, whether it's about an individual thing, whether it's about people we know, or whether it's about the world as a whole, there's always something to say. And it just makes me so happy that I've got someone who's just like, it's just, I can say anything that's happened and someone will be able to have a conversation with me about it, you know, in some way. And it's not just because we're both, you know, grew up in very similar ways. It's because Saba's just as like informed and just as curious as me. And so that's why, for example, I brought Saba on as a director for Middlesex Pride. I was just like, I mean, also because they work harder than me, they get the job done more than me, but like also because they get it. They get so much of it.
Yes.
And I couldn't imagine giving that kind of role to anyone else.
I love that. There's such a beauty and a trust and yeah, just
Yeah.
beautiful to hear. Middlesex Pride, we create the spaces that we need, right? And so I've been to Middlesex Pride. I came last year and I know that last year was a massive slog for you to pull it off. You're excited about this year though, right?
Yes. So like last year, all the funding fell through. It was awful. It was, everyone knows what happened. I mean, everyone was experiencing it. All the DEI rollback globally, all companies, everyone stopped giving a shit about queer people. But like on top of that, it wasn't just because we don't do any corporate funding for our Pride. Our Pride is completely ethical. It's fossil free. We're pro-Palestinian. And so we have a lot of funders that just like stay away from us anyway. But like people stopped caring as much, which was surprising to us. And it felt like, you know, the allies stopped allying last year. And it was interesting to see. It was like, oh, when you don't have to, you won't. And that's something we definitely noticed. And I think this year it's kind of like roll back on that a bit. We've kind of seeing allies come through again. And it was a really strange moment. And it kind of like, I felt a bit lost, if I'm honest. I was like, what's the point then? Like, if no one's going to show up for us, you know, we're here to show people that people are going to show up for us. But then they did. Everyone came through, like the community pulled through. Unison, who's been such a great sponsor of Middlesex Pride for so long, came through as well. And all these people just said like, no, you do have support. You know, it's fine. And so we managed to put on like the smallest little Pride. It was so cute. It was so cute. But
yeah, it was
I loved it. But this year we're like almost completely funded already. This is also down to Saba, may I add. This is Saba's hard work. Because if this was down to me, I would just be like hounding people I know. But like Saba has gone out and done like proper funding forms and like, you know, contacted all these people, having all these meetings. It's been really great. But like, yeah, we've got like funding sorted this year. We're going to have a lot more things happening as well. Like, because one of my things about Pride is I don't like Pride personally. Or let me rephrase, I don't like what Pride is now. I don't like big prides. I don't like these festivals of prides. I've never really enjoyed them. I remember once I went to Pride in London, let's say 10 years ago. No, let's say 8 years ago. I don't know. I can't count. And I was given like I don't know why. I think at that time as well, when I'd started Bent Ruddy, people were like, oh, she's someone, let's give her something. And so I was given like VIP access to Pride in London. And I didn't know what that meant. And what that meant was there was a little tent that people stood inside with Budweiser written all over it, where those people inside that Budweiser tent were like VIPs. I remember walking in and getting a Budweiser pint in a Budweiser cup with like trans flag on it, just being like, where the fuck am I? Like, it was surreal. And then I instantly walked out. I found a friend and I was like, save me. and we found like a little cafe. We just holed up in the cafe for the rest of it. And all I saw everywhere was Tesco. And I just didn't know where I was. And I didn't know where the pride was. I didn't know where my people were. Because when I was in that tent, none of those people were my people at all. Right. And so it was a very kind of isolating experience. And then I realized like a lot of the prides I was going to felt so isolating, even though you were surrounded by thousands of people.
Yeah.
And it's because pride to me never meant like a festival. It never meant like, you know, never meant hierarchies. It never meant VIPs. It never meant Budweiser. Definitely. Yeah. And so I think like off the back of that's another reason that Middlesex Pride was important to me as well. It was like not just showing up for my community in my area. It was also to show up for like what pride meant, what pride should mean. And so our pride is fossil free. It is ethically funded. It is pro-Palestinian. It is trans led. Like I'd say like 70% of our volunteer team are trans and non-binary. Like we're 90% people of color as well. Like, it's all the things that you don't see in pride events. There's no Budweiser. There's no British Airways. There's not all these people that are counterproductive to what pride means. And like the queer politics of pride is far more important to me than seeing Britney Spears perform. And so yes. I think that Middlesex Pride exists for that reason, is to show that you can have a different, I mean, it's family friendly. It's for kids to come along. We do face painting for kids, but we also have banner making as well for people to write political signs as well at the same time. We have people to go on stage and talk about the things that, you know, people who are neurodivergent, people who are Muslim and trans, people to talk about their like identities and their experiences. You know, it's not a showcase of look at this like really famous person that we managed to get because we spent all of your money on this person. You know, it's like these prides are full of like straight people as well.
Yes. You know, there's a couple of prides that I'm particularly thinking about as you're talking, and you know, I've swerved them. And don't get me wrong, there are pockets of joy in those pride events. You know, with Pride in London, the parade is beautiful in terms of the energy, and the crowd support is wild. But you're right, they come with, it's problematic. I mean, look at Pride in London, and it's constant over the years, the issues internally and how it presents itself. Look at Brighton Pride and the impact that it's had on community in terms of the mess, in terms of kind of how they've had to start charging for tickets because of that, and therefore now you pay tickets to see people like Mariah Carey and stuff. And I've often fought against that side of things. Like, I'd rather see a local drag performer because it would feel more authentic and meaningful.
Exactly. Like if you want to see Mariah Carey, go to the O2 Arena.
Concert, yeah.
You'll see more. And 80% of the people there are going to be queer anyway. You know, like
yeah.
You don't need to take over pride to show off. It feels like showing off, doesn't it? Like, look who we got. Kind of thing. It's like competitive prides. Yeah. And it no longer means anything to me. It lost meaning. So I lost kind of hope in prides. I didn't see the point in them after a while. I stopped going to most of them. I don't go to any anymore, actually, because I just don't enjoy them. And again, as someone with anxiety, I do find them quite difficult as well. That's why I made sure mine is quite small.
They are a challenge. So Middlesex Pride, Sunday the 2nd of August. Save the date, anyone listening.
Yes, come along, Gunsbury Park. You'll have a great time.
It is beautiful. It is really beautiful. Sharan, I'm so excited to dive into your origin story and get to know you a little bit more. So with that, are you ready to pause and rewind?
Yes, let's do it.
Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little Sharan. And I've already got a little bit of kind of a feel for that, but tell me more.
Little Sharan. Oh my God. Poor thing. So honestly, she was cute though. Little Sharan. Okay. So growing up, I was like, you know, I grew up in an Indian family, and I grew up in Southall, and I grew up hairy. I grew up with like thick glasses. It's like I was born with them. I'm not sure. And like, I also had the hooked nose as well growing up. And so I had all the elements of like the bingo card for bullying. So as soon as I hit school, I was incredibly bullied as a child. It was just an easy target, I think, for people. And it was school was kind of just like one of those places where you had to like show you were on higher ground than people. So the first thing you do is you just go for the person that you can. And so a lot of people went for me. And it was easy. It was so easy. They would call me, you know, those Karl Marx glasses with they would call me that. Do you remember Concorde? The Concorde planes?
Yes.
Yeah, I was called the Concorde plane because of my nose. Like all these things.
Oh, wow.
Like it just just one after the other. I remember like there was a bunch of kids that came outside of my house once and was screaming things at me from outside my house. My mum had to chase them away. And also because my house was like right down the road from the school, everyone knew where I lived. So
Okay.
it wasn't like the house was a sanctuary or anything like that. My house was also part of the school almost. It was just like this is my house and there was a school. So there was no real escape from that for like most of my teenage years. And so I found sanctuary in music. So I got into things like Nine Inch Nails. I just became, and then I eventually became emo when I went to university. But I started with like metal, and like I found like my little tribe, and they were the best people. They were the sweetest people I've ever met. These like goths and these metalheads, they were just so lovely, and they took me in. And we'd go to gigs together. The older I got, there were these two twins, and we'd go to gigs with them all the time. I still couldn't tell who was who. And we like, yeah, it was so fun. And I created this like beautiful group of people who made me
Mm.
feel kind of like better about myself in some
Yeah.
way. But like as I got older and as I became more and more of a teenager, I would do things like I started removing hair from my face and from my entire body. I was just like
Mm.
completely hairless. I wore contact lenses, but I wore those colored contact lenses to sort of like be like, more European or something. And then like eventually I got a nose job as well.
Yeah.
Um at like 23, I think. Like, yeah, quite a long time ago. I got a nose job as well. So like all these things I did to be like try and fit in somehow because all that bullying had really gotten to
Of
me.
course.
And yeah.
Of course, I mean, beauty expectations and standards is something that people can read a lot about in your work, in the book, in your articles and such. What did you, just taking it back before those teenage years, at such a young age, bullying is horrendous. It's something that I experienced as a teen myself. What did you think about the world at the time? And I guess what did support around you look like that to get through it? Because from the book, I gather, I hear that your parents were kind of very supportive in trying to, show you that you were beautiful as you were. What did you think of the world, though?
I think, yeah, when I was younger, I think my parents tried to support me in the way that parents do when they
Yeah.
just say something and you're just like, that's kind of meaningless. Like, it's like
Mm.
you just read kind of an inspirational poster. But
Yeah.
the thing with it as well is, if I'm honest, it was quite lackluster as well. And I think it's because my parents were like, there's bigger things out there. You know,
Right.
bullying is not going to really do anything. So my support was very minimal. I didn't really have much. And so I think I don't know how I got through that, if I'm honest, but I managed to get through it eventually. I think my brother was like a part of a support system for me, but also as a guy, he got so much more than me, and like
Mm.
not as in bullying, but got so much more support than me from like
Right.
family that he was kind of like disillusioned to like what it was like to live the life I did. So there was only so much support he could give me because according to him, it was okay, because
Yeah.
he got so much from people. So I didn't really get that much support. It was kind of like it was quite difficult at that time. I think I managed to just get by it through things like pop culture, through getting like really obsessed with like TV shows and films and making my whole identity about like music videos and things like that, just making my identity about pop culture instead so
Yeah.
that I could like disconnect from like what was really happening. Because if I came back to the real world, then everything was awful. So my life revolved around the TV ever since I was young.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's really shaped you in itself, given, I mentioned at the beginning, when I think about you, I think about you as a social and cultural commentator. That really, really shines through in kind of like how you seem to absorb and then be able to translate that into your own voice, which I talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It has definitely like guided me in many
Mm.
ways. You know how parents are like, you shouldn't watch so much TV. I'm like, well, it's made me who I am now.
Yeah.
I like because I became a massive geek growing up as well. Like I was really into comic books, and I even worked at Forbidden Planet for a while. And like I think having that kind of like subculture of like being a nerd kind of like helped me become who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a massive nerd, but like I was able to access so much more of the world as a nerd because like I think that when you don't have the ability to kind of like what's like, these like subcultures that are looked down on, like,
Yeah.
whether it is like, music subcultures or, literature or whatever, because you think you're better than them, you don't get to access it. But I was
Mm.
able to access everything because I was involved in all of it and I was so into it. And that gives you so much insight into the world and the way
Yeah.
people are. And I think I learned so much. I learned so much from goths straight up. They were the first people to teach me so much about the world. Like how much, like, love there is. You know, I
Yeah.
really learned that from goths before I learned it from anyone
That's
else.
beautiful.
Honestly, like they're just like the kindest people I've ever met. And then as I kind of delved more and more into all these different subcultures, I mean, one of the biggest things I came across was like gender disparities within these subcultures. So like being girl in these subcultures was kind of just like it was abnormal, but also, you know, you were kind of like sexualized within them as well. So there was all these kind of like things you came across. But I learned so much. And because of that, that's now informed the way that I look at the world, you know, because I know that all these things and people exist in the way that they have. I can see it now in the world. I can see the geeks out there doing their
Yeah.
thing.
How did obviously kind of growing up in an Indian household, having that as your kind of culture, and then your appreciation of other cultures, how did people react to your appreciation of other cultures? Was there just that's just Sharon, or did they question it?
So yeah, I think the thing is I grew up in a really South Asian area.
Of course.
So anyone that like, I think a lot of people thought I was weird growing up. Like a lot of the people around me, whether it was like people my age or people who were older, like, you know, family and stuff, they all just thought I was weird. Like I did get a few comments from people saying that, like from like family and stuff, saying that you're a bit of a freak. Like, you know, you're a bit abnormal. You shouldn't be like this. You're not, one, you're not very girly. And then two, like, you know, you're not into the stuff that you should be into. You know, you're like talking about comic book characters where you should be like, you know, talking about Barbies or something. I don't know. I never owned a Barbie. I used to have a Cindy. I had a really old secondhand Cindy mermaid and I ripped her apart very quickly. So like, I wasn't interested in the things that I should have been. You know, I wasn't interested in getting married. I wasn't interested in like, you know, I am now obviously going to get married, but like I wasn't interested back then because of what it meant. It meant marrying in a hetero kind of situation. And I just couldn't possibly imagine that. I wasn't into cooking. I wasn't into all the things South Asian girls should have been into. And so I was called a freak. I was called weird. I was called abnormal. Some people were like, she'll grow out of it, hopefully. And then it got to a point where I think people were a bit like, oh, it's a bit of a lost cause.
Okay.
You know, as I started turning into like a young teenager and I still wasn't interested in things that they thought I'd be. A lot of them were just like, oh, I guess that's what she's going to be like. You know, she's a bit of a lost cause. And I think my parents got a bit of shit from that. Like, I think a lot of extended family were just like, how have you raised her? Why isn't she like the other girls? And, you know, so they tried to force a bunch of stuff on me. They tried to make me like more like a South Asian woman. They tried to like get me into like, my mum talked to me loads about like, you know, getting me an arranged marriage. Said, do you want to get an arranged marriage? She doesn't even like arranged marriages. She hates them. But all the pressure she was getting,
Yeah.
she felt the need to say that to me. And I remember just being like, no, I don't want any of that, but I don't want you to feel this pressure as well. So there was this, when I went into becoming a teenager is when I started to then try and conform in many ways.
Was there a moment where assimilation and conformity felt maybe like the easiest task? Because actually having that many expectations placed on you as a teenager is quite a lot. Like, why am I getting all this shit for just being who I am? So there was a point where conformity felt like the easiest option?
Oh yeah. I owned a lot of lip gloss for a
Okay.
while. Yeah, I kind of decided that the best way now to get people off my back and to be liked more, because suddenly like all my subculture groups were leaving me. They were moving on. They were going on to other things. But they also were conforming in different ways. So I was like, shit, now I have to. And so I conformed to being a teenage girl in many ways and showed interest to all these gross boys. Looking back on, I was just like, oh my God, they were so awful. But like, I felt like I had to. I had to show this kind of interest in them. I had to and do all these things that actually put me in really kind of like horrible situations and circumstances off the back of it. Like looking back, I'd just be like, that's actually like putting a vulnerable woman in a really kind of like dangerous situation, actually. So I would put myself in these places. I would put myself in these situations to try and conform, because according to society, conforming is to be in a dangerous situation. And so I would do that loads. And it was horrible. It was like, I think that my teenage years when I was conforming as a girl was some of the worst years that I've experienced, like the bullying aside. And I think it's because I opened myself to kind of exist in this heteronormative, patriarchal kind of like society where no matter what, I was going to be demeaned and I was going to end up being abused by someone because of it, you know? And it was kind of the path that everyone wanted me to take. It was such a confusing period.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll be a girl. And then I was like, this is horrible. Why does everyone want me to experience this? It was just this weird situation I was finding myself in. And I think because of that, I managed to emerge out of that,
Yeah.
being like, oh, I need to get out of this. This is not it. I've experienced so many subcultures that did not conform. I conformed and it was the worst. And now I have to come out of it. So I think that was kind of the journey I went through.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge journey to figure out at a young age. And I know you had some retrospective conversations in the book. And what did those early conversations look like before the book came about? And I wonder whether your realization around kind of wanting to not conform and avoiding that gave them some kind of liberation and freedom in their own thinking as well.
Not for my mum. There's no liberation there, unfortunately. There's a lot of conformity there.
Okay.
Me and my mum don't really talk anymore. We have been on and off talking my entire life.
Same with my mum. I hard relate. I don't have a relationship anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a very kind of like a well-known queer story where like your family, you're meant to love your family and you're meant to have your family in your life until you realize you're cutting out all these toxic friends and these toxic people from your life. Sometimes it's family as well. And so after loads of like back and forth of being like, actually, you don't like me and I don't like you. Let's just stop talking.
Yes.
It's finally happened. So I'm in a good space because I used to every time I'd talk to her, like I remember one of my exes saying, every time you talk to your mum, you end up crying on the phone. But why are you talking to her? And I was like, because I feel bad if I don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
But now, like, I'm at a stage where I don't have to experience that. So, and it's because of like she never grew in the way that I wanted her to grow.
Yeah.
Now she grew in the way that she needed. She grew in the way that her life helps her. But it was a very kind of, and it has to be selfish when it comes to family. I needed something from her and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
So we ended up not, just butting heads and not aligning. And that's totally fine. And it's totally normal and okay. And I feel great about it. I don't feel sad about it. I'm like, she's actually living a really great life. She's on a cruise all the time with her friends. Like, she's having a great time. She doesn't also need the stress of having these phone calls with me as well. So we're both happy living these separate lives. And I'm cool with that. I'm like, you grow in your way, I grow in mine.
Yes.
With my dad, however, he used to buy the Daily Mail. He used to be quite a conservative South Asian in many ways. In many ways, he wasn't, because my dad growing up was a hippie. He came to the UK and he joined a band. He can't sing or anything, can't play any instruments, by the way. He joined a band. His favorite singer is Bruce Springsteen, by the way. He rides motorbikes because he thinks it's cool. And so my dad was also like not a typical South Asian person. So, but I didn't experience that growing up. That was kind of like hidden from me, all of that stuff. My parents were separated for a long time. And so getting to know him better after they divorced as well was quite an experience, because I was just like, oh, like wild.
Did you suddenly kind of see some of maybe the pressures that were placed on him that he then therefore placed on you?
Yeah, I did. But also because, like most men that I've experienced, also lives within this world of misogyny.
Yeah.
So he was also the problem as well, and still continues to be in many ways. And so like a lot of our relationship is, again, conversations. And I think that's the best way that I've kind of like grown any kind of relationship I've had, is via conversation. So I used to take my dad to the pub and like just sit with him and over a couple of pints talk to him about politics, about gender, about sexuality, about like various things. Be like, oh, did you know? And then like over time, he would start parroting it back to me as if it was his idea, or he I'm like, okay, cool, I'll give it to you. And yeah, and like over time, I just basically exposed him to a lot of the world that he wasn't exposed to, or was exposed by the wrong kind of media. And so I showed him the other side of things. And because he trusts me because I'm his daughter, outside of trusting like a random newspaper, it made more sense to him. So he started to grow as well. Now, at the same time, he's still a difficult South Asian man who in many ways is still conservative. But he's also the only one in my family, like in my parent family, that have kind of like opened up in that way. He's accepting of me, although he has made comments. So it's very kind of like difficult to kind of just like, be like, oh, he's learned so much and he's great now, It's like he's learned a lot, but he's still in the process of unlearning a lot.
Yeah.
And he still makes a lot of mistakes, but he also believes things that are very conspiracy theory related because of the media, because he just consumes the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
And
Fuck the media.
it's hard work.
Yeah.
So honestly.
I guess at least with him and similar relationships with both parents in terms of your own. There's a willingness. There sounds like
Yeah.
there's at least a willingness and there's good intention there. And it was beautiful to see him there at your engagement and such,
Yeah.
and a lot of love. But no, I appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's complex, isn't it? It's complex, and all you can
It's
do is
complex.
try.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's complex because it has to be complex because it can't be that simple. It
Mm,
can't be. You can't allow people to think it's that simple. You have to let people like, and especially if you're like showing people what it's like to be queer within South Asian families, you have
yes.
to show them the journey and the complications that come with it and the things they may come up against. Because if you're like, yeah, things with my dad are great now, and people don't have that experience, they're like, oh, where have I gone wrong?
What?
Or
Yes.
where, like, so like showing the complexity I think is super important so people
Mm,
can understand that every journey is not going to be easy. It's going to come across all these things and it's going to be like almost a forever journey in many
yeah.
ways, and that's totally fine to do. It's also fine to cut people off.
It really is. It really is, and actually, it's bloody healthy to do as well. My life would not be what it is now if I hadn't taken those steps. So it's important. We touched a little bit on lack of representation, and we particularly know there's kind of lack of representation in Asian communities, Black communities when it comes to queerness. What did those early conversations around queerness look like with you and your family?
We never really had them. So my mum found the issue of Attitude magazine where I was kissing Sophie Duker on the cover.
Wow, that is brilliant. I bet it wasn't at the time though.
It was the thing is like having a conversation with either of them about queerness wasn't going to achieve anything for them or for me.
Yeah.
So there
Okay.
was no point in having any of that conversation. The thing I could only do and the only thing I could control was the way I lived my life.
Okay.
And so I did that, and I did that the best way I could, and that included making out with Sophie Duker, which honestly, like, no regrets. Like, I did it the best way. My mom found out the best way possible,
She's
but like,
brilliant. She's so funny.
she's so funny. She's the best. I
Yeah.
love her so much. But like, yeah, so there was no conversation, and there hasn't really been a conversation. There was one time my mum said to me after I'd come out publicly, so she was aware, her friends were aware, basically, is the thing. She once whispered to me in a restaurant, "Do you have to?" or something like that.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, so I get it. Like, there's never going to be a journey of a conversation here. It's just her being like, can you just stop it now? And then like a part of her was just like, okay, but she might marry a man, things like that. And so I think there's never been a conversation because there's never been space for one. And I don't want to create a space that shouldn't be there.
Mm.
Like if it won't fit, if a space doesn't make sense there, I don't want to force it. I'm happy to just like walk away from it.
Yeah.
She doesn't need that experience as much as I don't need that experience. So, but like with my dad, he just basically said to me, Sharon, sexuality is fluid. I'm like, bitch, I said that to you at the pub last week. And he's like, oh, that's my saying.
Well, I suppose that within that, just thinking about those times when you were younger where you made yourself smaller, right? And that's something that we all do, have moments of having to do. I suppose not creating that space, those conversations, and just choosing to live, that was kind of some kind of pushback against that need to make yourself feel smaller, or to fight against that question of do you have to? And yes, I do have to because this is me.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's interesting. When you think of like quiet Sharan, subdued Sharan didn't actually know much about herself because she wasn't allowed to experience
Okay.
it. So I came out in my 30s. I came out 32 because I wasn't I wasn't allowed to experience what queerness meant or looked like for me individually. I understood it for other people in my 20s, and before that I didn't understand it at all. And so young me was quiet about things because she wasn't allowed to experience it. And the reason that I'm so loud now is because I have so many experiences as well to back everything up, because I just love being immersed in these stories of people. I love learning things from people. And I think because of that, as soon as I learn something, I'm like, oh my God, let's tell everyone,
Yeah.
And I just, as I grew and learned, I became more vocal as well, I think. But the lack of experience that I was allowed to have, I think, was a big part of it.
Do you wish, in hindsight, that you'd have had those experiences earlier? And sometimes hindsight's an amazing thing, right? But what do you think?
You know what? It's interesting because, like, I wouldn't change anything about my childhood despite it being awful. I wouldn't change anything because I am kind of scared of, like, the kind of person I'd be as well if it was different because I like me now.
Yeah, same. It takes a
No?
while to
Yeah.
get there. It takes a while to get there, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Like 41. It took me until 41 to be like, I actually like you. because it's a recent revelation. This isn't an old thing. This is recent. Because like before then, I didn't like me. I liked what I did.
Okay.
And I thought I did good things and I was a good person. And as soon as I went, okay, but who does it? Who is that person? Like if you had someone to look up to, it would be you, because that's the person that's doing the things that you like, so you like yourself. And it took a while to get there because, my entire life was like, one, it's like narcissistic to look up to, oh, like yourself, you have to be a bit more demure. You have to be kind of just a bit more kind of humble or whatever. And it's like, bitch, no, I can like myself if I want. I can love myself. I can be obsessed with myself if I want. It's none of your business. I can do that. And I think it's this whole thing that people were just like, no, you can't. You have to, one, you have to look up to other people. And two, if you do something, be humble about it. I'm like, no, I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to it's a great thing to do this. And also people can learn. People can benefit. People can see that this is a journey and they could be like, oh, maybe I want to take a similar journey, And so I kind of I don't know, it's just, yeah.
I think it's so important that we learn to be our biggest champions, because I think for someone like you, for someone like me, Saba, we are instinctively such champions of other people, but it takes us much longer to be that for ourselves.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, with community work, you're working for the good of the people, and you forget that the people is you.
Yeah.
Working for the good of you, and it's something that you get lost in a lot. Yeah, I got lost in it a lot. I didn't, it wasn't just that I didn't like myself. For a while, I hated myself. And I went through and it wasn't just I hated the way I looked or whatever, because it was during a time that I went through my disordered eating had come back, and I was in a way, in many ways, harming myself off the back of it. I also hated some decisions I was making in my personal life, and I thought I was a bad person off the back of it. And I would berate myself regularly over things that were just so insignificant, or just things that informed who I was in many ways, because you're allowed to have negative parts of your personality. You're allowed to have them exist. They just make you a different person. And I don't know, I just really berated myself. I really made myself this villain that I hated, physically, emotionally, everything. And so coming out of that was huge as well. And I think Saba was a big part of that, coming out of that. I think Saba made me realize so much about how you do, the way Saba loved me showed me that I am someone that's capable of love from myself as well. I don't have to have it from someone else. I don't have to have it from Saba. I can give it to myself too. And I think Saba's one of the few people who has taught me that. And I think that's something that, I just carry with me now.
Yeah, that definitely shines through in the book when you talk about some of your past dating relationships and experiences too.
That bitch, I swear to God. My dating experiences are just so messed up. Yeah. And again, it's because I was told that I had to conform. I was told I have to conform. I have to be in these relationships. I have to put myself in these situations. I have to have these expectations. And it always was so horrible. It was so harmful. So many of them. And I'm not I wouldn't want to experience it, because some of them are really bad, but those experiences have informed who I am now and the way that I understand myself and relationships. I wish it didn't have to be that way, but I'm glad it did create the person I am now. But again, the way that society had told me to conform, to be in these hetero-patriarchal, these misogynistic relationships, whether they were in straight or queer relationships, created such harmful kind of bubbles that I put up and I sat in for ages. And then when that person left that relationship, I was still in that bubble of hate. And I would just sit there, and so I would hate myself. And it was until you just kind of come out of it and you realize that that's the stupidest thing you can do, that I kind of realized that I can let proper love in. And that's when me and Saba actually proper started dating.
I feel like there would be, with all of your work and how you talk, a follow-up to the book from those couple of years ago when you wrote it to now would be a totally different experience. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I think there's so much. The thing is every time you write something, it happens to me, if I write something the next day, I'm I changed the entire
yeah, of course. Of course. Staying on the theme of you as a writer and a journalist and speaker, what did early career look like? Did it look like it looks now?
No. So, okay, so I wanted to be an animator. So I used to grow up watching music videos. And one of my favorite bands at the time was Tool, and their music videos were this claymation. And I was just like, I want to create that. I want that to be my life. And so I actually studied animation at university. And I think it was within the first month, I was like, oh, I suck at this. I'm so bad at this. So I moved to film instead. So I did film and animation together. But I just didn't have the patience for animation. It was just taking too long. I just couldn't do it. But I wanted to be creative. I've always wanted to be creative. I always had that in me. But my actual career journey was very kind of like all over the place. Like when I came out of university, I left university without honors. I didn't technically graduate because I just spent the entire time drunk at one point. So they were like, we'll give you a BA without honors, just leave. And I was like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
So I technically haven't graduated. And then I left, and then I just got these menial jobs. I got a job in payroll for ages, and I can't add. And I mess up calculators. Like, I don't know how I got that job. I had that job for so long. And loads of people got paid well because of me, because I think I made loads of errors and put loads of extra zeros on people's pay slips. But yeah, I went into payroll randomly. And then it was because it was one of the first jobs that was going, one of the things that would take me in. So I was just like, I'll do anything. And then I worked at Thorpe Park as a ride attendant. And for a whole season, I don't know. Because Thorpe Park is actually not far from me. It's in Staines, and being Hounslow is not that far. I worked as a bartender in most pubs. I worked, what else did I then ended up in production, where I worked as a runner on a bunch of online videos for a production company. And I went on as a producer for them. And so I became an online video producer. And then I realized how underpaid I was. And so I left, and I started an animation agency during the time of Vine, because I was like, I can do 6 seconds. I was like, I have the patience for 6 seconds. So I was like, I can do 6-second animations. Oh my God. So for a bunch of brands, I did a bunch of those 6-minute animations for Vine. They had, I remember when brands were just a massive thing doing these stop motions. So I did a bunch of those. And then I was like, no, I'm tired of this. And then I just woke up one day and I was like, I want to have a magazine. It was just a moment where I was like, I want to have a magazine. Let's see what happens with this. I think with everything I've done has just been I want to do this. Let's see. I wanted to work at Thorpe Park. I was like, I'd love to work at Thorpe Park. So I just went there and got the job, and I worked there. And it's just what will this path take me on? So I was like, okay, I want to start a magazine and see what happens. And so I randomly came up with Ben Rutti. I then crowdfunded it. And then I was like, oh shit, I need a website, I need social media, I need all this stuff. It's not just creating a magazine and walking away. And so then I had to follow it up with all these kind of the whole digital footprint of Ben Rutti. And then it took off because there was nothing else in that space that was the same. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't realize I was hitting something important. And so it kind of took off without me. And I was like, oh, I have to catch up to this. I have to learn all these processes. I have to understand what I'm doing. And so that was a long part of Ben Rutti, was me learning.
Yeah.
Because coming from I was a North Indian, Punjabi, light skinned, I had a certain privileged outlook on what the term South Asian meant. So I had to learn so much history, and that came into a lot of my kind of appreciation for history suddenly. And so I learned so much South Asian history so I could, in a balanced way, try and represent my idea of what South Asian meant. Because I went ahead and said South Asian magazine, and I just oh my God, what have you done, Sharon? Do you know how big South Asia is? And so it was quite a journey, and it did take off finally. But it never was a moneymaker. I'm the only person that works on it. Never had anyone else because I can't pay anyone. I've had some people come on and help me every now and then, but it's all been run by me. And so I make a loss every time I printed a magazine. I just made a substantial loss. And most of it was funded by my wages. I think one was a sponsor. And then I had to get jobs to try and support myself throughout it. And that ended up being a journalist. Because of Ben Rutti, people would give me space. So I had that privilege suddenly that I had the name Ben Rutti, because people were like Sharan Ben Rutti, as if it was my surname. And so I was getting requests to write. I was like, oh my God, amazing. I used to love writing when I was young. And so I started writing articles. And then Ben Rutti started being known as the South Asian hub. So people would come to me to ask me, do you know a South Asian photographer and stuff? And it was part of my community. It was yeah, there's a bunch of people, pay them. And so I started banning out my community to the world, just being yeah, take them all. And then leaving nothing for myself. So I was becoming more and more penniless as it went on. And so I had to keep taking on more jobs. And Banwati is kind of like, since then, there's no more print issues coming out. And it's on only social media when I have time to do social media. But like the journey of it has just been amazing. I've learned so much. I've met so many people. My cool group that I love, like met by Banruti, and it's just such an important part of my life and my career. But then that started to like, because now that's starting to diminish. I'm still like, I'm working as a journalist, I'm a commissioning editor as well, and so I'm working within this space that I don't really like that much. So but I really like history, so I'm like, I want to be a queer historian. So my journey has just been all over the place. It's never been a straight line, but it's always been, except for payroll, it's always been in the creative world.
Yes.
I still don't understand why the payroll thing happened. But yeah, so I've always known that I was going to be creative, but I didn't know where or how or when. And it is true that when you're in there and you've got the contacts, you could start like working the scene. But if you don't know anyone and you don't have any contacts, it's so hard to be in the creative industry. And so I was so lucky that Bedwood started taking off, so I could just like access all these spaces suddenly.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of your legacy and your impact on the world, but it sounds like it also had a massive impact on you. I know that kind of the creative industry is, and particularly when it comes to writing and being an author, is challenging for many kind of underrepresented, marginalized people. I know that's something that you are really, really passionate about. Do you think it's getting better?
No, I don't think there is a better. So I think, like, I was talking to my agent about this actually, and we were talking about the cycles of publishing. So it's cyclical. It's not like it's improving, like slightly, but it works in like a moon phase almost. So like you kind of, suddenly everyone wants diverse books until they don't,
Until they
and then
don't.
they want it back until they don't. And so you have to wait till it comes back around again. So as a creative, you have to sit there and wait
Yes.
until they're ready for you. And then you come up with your idea and give it to them. And then they could be like, wait till the next round because we don't know about this one. Or they commission it and then it comes out 2 years later and it does badly because they stop caring because they're not back at that part of the cycle. So it's not a good space to be in as like a queer person of color in many ways. In many ways it is. It depends on your genre as well. I think if you're working in like crime or like romance and things like that, it's easier to work within those worlds. But in nonfiction, especially, it works within this cycle that doesn't quite meet us at when we need it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, and you see it with people who have got these book deals and then they get dropped all of a sudden, and because your agent's Abby, right? Is Abby your agent?
Yeah, Abby, gorgeous little Abby. I love her
Wonderful.
so much.
She's wonderful.
Obsessed with her.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. Is there someone who shaped you the most along the way?
Yeah, me.
Well, hey, I love that.
I genuinely have. It has been me. I think the real answer is everyone.
Of course.
But I've been the one that's allowed that kind of shaping to happen at various times and stopped it from happening at other times. So I've had that control. I think we all have that control, but there hasn't been a singular person. And I don't have that because I think it's difficult for me to have a singular person to look up to because I think I'm quite critical of people. I think holding people up to like, a higher kind of platform and saying that this person is great is hard for me to do because I don't think everyone is great, including myself. I think we are all problematic. And I think if I look up to someone too much and then they let me down in something, everything might come crashing. I'm too scared of that. So I can control myself and I can control how I feel about myself. I just look up to myself now, and it is informed by people around me 100%, but I can't hold anyone in that space in case they disappoint me because I think it would break me.
That's so interesting. I wonder then, are you able to be kind of like compassionate to yourself in those moments of holding yourself to such high account?
Well, I think that's why I went through that journey, didn't I? Where I kind of like hated myself and I didn't like myself because I wouldn't give myself that kind of grace. I think I've gone to that space now where I can give myself that grace, where if I do mess up or if I don't do something, then it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And I like kind of reminded myself to step out a bit and look in because when I do something that is messed up or just like annoying or whatever, the large scheme of things, it doesn't matter and no one cares. Like, no one cares. If I don't talk about something, no one's going to be like, Sharan hasn't talked about that. Oh my God. So it's okay that I am physically or mentally unable to do something, and I have to give myself that grace as well. Can't push myself into like unhealthy kind of standard. I have to allow myself to be healthy.
Yeah, because you give that to other people. I know you would.
100%.
Yeah. Looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
I am most proud of Ben Ruddy. I'm
Yeah.
most proud of the magazine. I think the magazine, I still get so many messages from people who say that they came out, they found the courage to come out because of Ben Ruddy. They found their community because of Ben Ruddy. They left abusive marriages because of Ben Ruddy. I get so many messages still to this day from people telling me about how that magazine or the presence of something that exists that looks like that has changed their life. And at first it was like, I didn't know how to like handle any of that. That was a lot, when I would get messages from people saying stuff like that, I didn't know what to do with it. But now I've learned that, like, take that. That's something you did. Like, be proud of that, and like continue that kind of support, continue that kind of work. And that's what's informed everything from now. Like, Middlesex Pride exists the way it does because of Ben Ruddy and the responses I got from Ben Ruddy. And the way that it changed people is how I want Middlesex Pride to change people's lives. And so I think I'm definitely most proud of Ben Ruddy because of the way it's now kind of like led the way I work as well, and the way I see things, and the way I kind of, what empowerment means to me now. And I think what it means to me now is the empowerment of other people, because I think empowerment is so beautiful, but the ability to empower is like just magical, And I think that these kind of spaces have done that. They've given the ability to empower. And so I'm proud of that.
Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Yes, that's it.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
It's one of mine. It's one of
It's one
mine.
of my favorite films. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It was obsessed. Oh my God. It had everything. It was my geeky side. It had my animation love. And then it had like comedy. And it was just like, and dark as hell.
Yes.
And it just had everything I needed. And it just still to this day, I am obsessed with it. I don't watch it that much so it doesn't get ruined. But every now and then I watch it and I'm like, it's the best thing ever made. It's the best thing ever made.
I love it. Next time I see you, I think we need to swap on Roger Rabbit impressions and such like that. Because
okay, perfect.
I love everything about it. I love the chaos. I love the weasels. I love Baby Herman. I love all of it.
Yes. Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit, she's so hot when she sings the song. Like, it's, oh my gosh, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that we share this in common.
I know.
What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
If I'm honest with you, I don't really have a saying I live by, but there's some sayings I really like. And one of them is on the poster over here. Shall I go get it? I'll show you the poster. It says, "Our liberation is bound together."
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I really love that. And it's by Lilla Watson and the Aboriginal activist group. And it's her original quote. And it just means everything to me because it's so accurate and everything that, and Saba feels exactly the same, which meant so much to me. It's such a good quote for Saba as well. And I think it's so important because it informs every kind of like moment of my life, like everything is bound, our liberation, it's all bound together. And it just makes me feel so good as well, I think. Yeah.
And there's something so much in there around that liberation can only come from solidarity.
100%. 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
What about one for the bin?
Oh my God, there's like so many. I don't like most of them.
I mean, so many sayings to just try it.
You know what I find really annoying? And it's not that it's a bad saying, but the word joy followed something and then joy afterwards. I'm just like, I'm tired of joy now. It's making joy less joyful, I think. Like the amount it's used, when a word is used over and over again, it loses meaning. I've got
a question for you shortly about joy. Yeah. So this is super interesting take on it.
Yeah. Like I genuinely feel like it's used so much. Like it's a very corporate word as well, I've noticed. So when corporations run a lot of campaigns, they use joy in it. Whenever a corporation uses the word, I lose interest like so quickly. And I think that's what's happened to me. And so, yeah, I think joy, queer joy or joy, like things like that, I just kind of go, ugh, like,
so interesting.
Like, it's allyship, but performative, I feel, because it's a word that they know that they can use and they will get like a big tick box to know that, like, if they're like, oh, we care about queer joy, then everyone's just like, yeah, great. That's a great thing to care about, obviously. But the meaning behind it is lost.
Interesting, because obviously it hosts a lot of panels, organise a lot of panels, and kind of like, what does queer joy look like, or talk to us about a moment of trans joy that people might not be aware of. That's something that comes up quite a lot. And I never thought about it from that stance, and I completely can see how it has been hijacked for corporate spaces.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it definitely exists in more kind of like grassroots and activist spaces, 100%. It's just, it's become difficult for me to like make that separation
Yeah.
now because I see it so much in corporate spaces, including the corporate spaces that I'm in
Yeah, yeah,
as well. Like, I
yeah.
mean, I'm not in it many, if I'm going to be completely honest,
Mm.
but like in the one I'm in, it's used a lot. And it just makes
Yeah.
me like, I'm like, do you care about it though? Or are you just saying that?
Yeah.
Because I just see it's like a word that's used meaninglessly now.
And for many of us that sit across the spaces, because there are people that sit firmly in one or the other, but for those of us like you and I and others that we know, they sit across both spaces. We can sit across both spaces. No, it's not always comfortable to sit across both spaces, but you actually do find yourself, and this has gone completely out of the realms of quickfire, but you do find yourself kind of like sometimes cringing at some of the things that you say yourself.
100%. Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah,
Fuck.
yeah, yeah. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
This romance.
I love
This
it.
romance with Saba has been the best. Yeah, because it has included loads of little adventures as well. So
Yeah,
overall, it's like one big amazing adventure, with loads of mini adventures inside.
I
I
love it.
love it. It's the best. Like, the adventure itself is being in love. And then within it, you do so many things. Like our next mini adventure is getting married
Yeah,
within this big love adventure that we're in. And it's been the most satisfying adventure
yeah,
because everything has just been so beautiful. Oh, obviously, there's like so many elements to it that are just like not always like joyful. But like, you're gonna come across things, but you do it in a way that is like beautiful. And so like everything we do when we come across like a problem or anything, we do it through communication and we do it through
yeah.
love. And so every part of it has, even when it has been difficult, has been amazing. And so this whole adventure is just, oh, I'm obsessed with it. I truly am. I'm
Well,
obsessed with Mother and I'm obsessed with the adventure.
as someone that gets to witness it, likewise,
Yeah.
and you're a fucking gorgeous pair of humans, so
Oh, thank
cheers to all
you.
the happiness for you both. What 3 words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Okay, so compassion, growth, love. It's so hard.
It's
It's so
really
hard
hard.
to do
Yeah.
that because like I feel like there's so many words that kind of are in so many different parts of my
Mm.
life. But I think those are, they're so cutesy though, aren't they? I
They're
feel
they're
cute though.
they're cutesy, but not in a kind of way. Like it's
I mean, I don't mind if they are because I
no,
feel like that.
we should lean into that. But it feels like that's and I might be wrong, but it feels like that's a very deliberate order.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because all those things come after the other. So
Yeah,
like as I grow, I became more compassionate and then I found love.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, gorgeous. I
Thank you.
totally see them from this conversation alone, but from reading the book and your work, you can see them. So
Oh, thank you, Neil.
let's fast forward a little bit. What
Okay.
exciting things do you have coming up? Loads.
Okay. Yes. Well, this one big thing in particular is Middlesex Pride. It's happening on the 2nd of August at Dunsbury Park. It's gonna be bigger and better than last time, which still means very tiny. But like it's a beautiful community space. Get all families, and it's not just like for the community, the LGBTQ plus community, it's also for allies as well, for people to come together. And it's about like sharing a space and feeling really happy and comfortable in that space. So we have like massive picnics, we have like a stage with performances, we have a creativity corner where we do face painting and like badge making, and we have soft play, and like we have like organizations where you can like chat to them. We have food stalls, we have samosas. And so there's like so many cool things that are happening during the day, and it's just so warm and loving, and it's a space to feel like it's okay to be whoever you are. It's okay. No one cares. Everyone's happy. And it's always so cute to see little kids running around covered in rainbows.
It was very
And
cute.
so, yeah, yeah. So we have that coming up, and that's something that I'm really kind of like excited about this year. And I think it's nice because last year I wasn't. So, I mean, not that I wasn't excited. I was scared last year, and I'm not scared anymore. So, yeah, we have that. I'm also, while we're going in the cyclical kind of cycle with publishing, I'm working on a new idea for a book, but myself and the world will have to be patient and wait for publishing to be ready for me. And I've got a lot of research to do anyway. So I think, yeah, there's things going to come soon, but I think I'm learning patience quite a lot and how the world works. And so I'm going to take my time, and it's nice to be slow with things.
Yes, yes. Hard, but nice.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like I realized how difficult it was for me to be slow. Like I kept being like, I need to, and
Mm.
especially when you're comparing yourself to people online,
Yeah.
which thankfully I've stopped doing. I realized I don't have to do anything
Yeah.
ever. just it's my choice. And so, yeah, I'm going to slowly release something again soon.
That you saying that just gives other people permission to do the same. And I think we all need that reminder right now.
Yeah.
That big old question, what brings you joy?
You know what? Chatting to friends, like having this conversation with you, Neil. Um, I am such a friend person. I have gatherings at my house. I do this Bollywood film night, and I get my friends around, and it's really queer and it's really silly. I do a quiz halfway through. I do a game at the beginning. I dress up and like I'm either an auntie or I'm like Shah Rukh Khan, the actor. And so I love hosting these like silly little events for my friends and spending time with them and making them happy. It genuinely just fills me up. I'm just like, it's the happiest I've ever been is when I'm with my friends all just like laughing over something stupid. And so, yeah, just chatting to people makes me happy.
So needed right now. Just,
Oh,
escapism, laughter, friendship. Yeah, beautiful.
absolutely.
Do you have any practical takeaways for anyone either wanting to maybe not carve out a career in inclusion, but create an inclusive space?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to do when you're creating an inclusive space is to have more people, more voices.
Mm.
And that's one of the things that I didn't do with Bedwardly to start with, but I definitely did with Middlesex Pride, is make sure that your voice isn't the only one considered in the world of inclusion and to bring in more kind of experiences. And so doing that with, for example, with Middlesex Pride has opened Middlesex Pride to be something, a lot better. I'm going to say better than it was when I first came up with the idea. And it's because all these other voices and all these other experiences and all these other needs came in and it kind of opened that door for me a bit more. And so even though you're in that world of like inclusion, there's only so much, and it's about bringing all these other kind of experiences in. And I think that's like one of the most beautiful things we can do when we create inclusion is to make sure that the people who are being helped are the people who are speaking out as well and like creating as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And leaning into collaboration and co-production within that as well, because it just makes it a much less lonelier journey.
Honestly, Banwoody was so lonely. It was so lonely. I did the whole thing on my own.
Oh,
Like, I mean, I collaborated with everyone per magazine
yeah.
issue, but like everything else was done on my own and it was lonely. I'd have to keep putting on events so I could see people
Yeah.
and like hang out with them. Because otherwise I'd just be on my laptop on my own, like day in, day out. And so having people around you is just not only is it great for the soul, but for the work that you're doing, you need all these other voices as well.
Really. Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
Yeah, I think no matter what, like, I think the most important thing that I have learned is to stay true to my beliefs and my morals. And one thing that I don't do is I don't work with people or organizations or companies who I find unethical, or I don't try to, you know. Obviously, we all have to live. But when I have the choice, if I have the choice, I will choose not to. And so I think sticking to your morals and sticking to your ethics makes it easier for you to learn who you are in this journey. And as soon as you start learning more about yourself and what you want and how you want it, then reaching your goal will become so much easier. And so I got there quite late, but I think if I kind of like understood where my ethics and my morals lay at the start, if I really started to like delve into it, the journey would have been maybe a bit different, but it would have been shorter. But like, yeah, knowing that now really informs everything I do. It really does. It's like having a business statement, but for your ethics. You're like, does this person interfere with these things? If it does, then I won't align myself with it because it will make me unhappy to do. And so that kind of helps me grow as a person and learn more about myself.
Well, listen, I am super grateful for the person you are and how you show up in the world. Thank you so much for all the work you do, for the words you put out there. Thanks for being loud. Please keep being loud. Keep being loud. We need it. Thanks for saying yes, and I can't wait to see you soon.
Well, thank you, Neil. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this podcast. You're amazing.